All right, everybody, so welcome back to another episode of Colton Posey Fishing. Today we're going to be going over my top 5 casting baits. Now this is kind of going to cover a little bit of everything, but it's mainly going to go to those pre-spawn fish, okay? Those fish that are getting ready to stage up and spawn and do their thing. These fish are usually aggressive, and we're going to have some fronts and stuff that's going to come through that's going to put these fish in a funk. They're going to push out. They're going to get in that little bit deeper water, off of those secondary points and those channel swings that's in the creeks and stuff like that. But that's the reason I did the finesse baits video. It kind of covers that. This is not typically for those fish, okay? Doesn't mean you're not going to find those fish up shallow when that happens, but this is like a good go around if your weather's been stable, for a couple days or whatever. You go out there, or maybe you got pre-front conditions or something like that. You can usually take these baits, pick them up. They're super simple to use, and you can smoke them. So stay tuned. This is something you don't want to miss. All right, guys, so if the video helps you at all, make sure to like, subscribe. It helps me out a whole lot. I got you covered when it comes to anything bass fishing. Also, comment down below if you have anything to add, any questions, or you just want to talk bass fishing. So let's jump into it. The first one that I want to talk about is a spinnerbait, okay? This is definitely one of my go-to. It's been one of my go-tos for years. I absolutely love a spinnerbait. It doesn't really matter what time of year it is. But this time of year, one thing that I notice is that willow with the Colorado kicker is definitely going to be, the difference, I guess you could say. I guess that a little bit more vibration, whatever the case may be, they typically like this. I stick to my shad colors, even in stained water, your whites and your chartreuse and stuff like that. But the willow in Colorado is something, it's gonna, you're still gonna be able to move that bait. It's gonna put out a lot of vibration in the water, but you can't necessarily move it so fast without burning that bait out that you're not going to present that bait too fast, where those fish are not, number one, either they're not going to catch up to it, or they're going to, just kind of put it off because it's moving too quick. But any of my spinner baits, I like to run a 7-foot medium heavy action rod. This, I should remember its gear ratio by now. 7.3 to 1 gear ratio reel, and I'm running 15-pound fluorocarbon. I typically like to run fluorocarbon on my spinner baits. Just feels right with that entire setup. Something I'm used to, so that's typically what I stick to. But I'm gonna use that bait, target those fish that are, dirt shallow. They're super shallow, or maybe they're pushed out, 8-foot max, but they're looking up and trying to feed on shad. That spinnerbait is going to smoke them. I used the War Eagle, and I used the Booyah. The War Eagle, I broke my last one the other day, so I've got the Booyah tied on right now until I get the other ones in. So either way, spinnerbait. Another great one is going to be the chatterbait. This is the Mini Max. I think that's what Z-Man calls it. I like going with this Mini Max because I have a lot of threadfin in my fishery, and with there being a lot of threadfin, I like smaller profile baits. Now, what I like doing with this is I'll take a 6 cents Divine, and I'll like cut that joker in half, and then I'll button it up on that little mini chatterbait. And I'm running it on 15-pound fluorocarbon once again, slow rolling at 7.3 to 1 gear ratio. This is a 7'4". No, this is a 7-foot. Heavy extra fast. This is a Powell mistake rod. I don't even think they make the mistake rods anymore, but either way, the setup's the main thing. I thought it was bigger than that, but no, this is a chatterbait rod. But either way, I really like this rod for chatterbaits. It's about the only rod that I use for chatterbaits, period. But either way, once again, reeling it, stopping it, popping it, especially you're going to start seeing little snippets of grass pop up out of your water. Noticed that the other day when I was at the lake. You get, you bump into that stuff, kind of rip it. I'm not ripping it like it's summer where I'm, just ripping it hard, but I'm kind of, just doing that little pop. I'm trying to pop it loose. That's all I'm trying to do. Those little subtle movements can change the course of your day completely. Now, the next one that I want to talk about, this is one that I'm super excited about because it's that time of year again where, the fish are starting to come up. They're getting shallower. I noticed the other day when I was at the lake, a lot of these threadfin and stuff were hanging out 0 to 3 foot deep, even out in the middle off of, those secondary points, or out in the middle of the channel, cruising back to the backs of these creeks and stuff. And the fish were about the same depth, just a hair below them, but they were actually coming up, busting the surface. So top water. So there's a couple different top waters that I like to use this time of year, but in my opinion, this one, the Chopo, Whopper Plopper, whatever you want to call it, or a buzzbait, all those are going to be great options. The only reason I would say the buzz bait and the Chopo or the Whopper Plopper stuff like that kind of outshines anything is because we're getting a lot of wind. We're going to get a lot of wind this time of year. There's going to be a lot of disturbance on the surface of the water. That's good. That's not a bad thing. But, you know, trying to run those walking baits or poppers and stuff like that, a lot of times it's very hard to get a good action out of those baits. With the Whopper Plopper or a buzz bait or something like that, you can. They're going to see it, they're going to hear it. It's easy for them to target, but, you know, I like sticking with my shad colors. Muddy water, this is great in muddy water. So, you know, we get a lot of rains this time of year. So, you know, your Chopos, your ploppers, and, you know, your buzz baits is going to be great. And if I have a buzz bait to suggest, I would say War Eagle. That's been my go-to for years. A lot of people use them, but you know, if you have any suggestions, drop a comment down below with the top water, because it's about that time. Now, another one that I like to use, and this is kind of going to be one of those baits from now until, you know, probably next winter, that I just don't put down. It drives the fish nuts. There's a couple variations that I use though, and I found this out last year, and I really wanted to play around with it last year before I brought it up to you guys. Number one, because I just wanted to make sure that what I'm seeing with this bait is, you know, something that I feel like I need to bring up to y'all to help you, basically. But either way, this is I've just got a standard Texas rig hook, or standard EWG hook, I'm sorry, and I'm gonna run that X-Zone Whiplash shad. So, you know, y'all have heard me talk about the Zoom Super Flukes for years, and I love the Zoom Super Flukes, but they have a real darty action, and there's not a whole lot of flutter to them, if that makes sense. There's not a whole lot of tail kick or anything like that. They just kind of dart everywhere. As that water temperature gets up in that 68-degree range, somewhere in that 65 to 68-degree range, that's when I'm gonna swap to that Super Fluke. But this X-Zone Whiplash shad, it's got kind of a swim action to it, kind of like it's just trying to swim away, and it's more straight laced, okay? It doesn't necessarily dart way over here, or dive, or up, down. It really depends on how you rig it also, but you know, just standard Texas rigging that bait, Tex-posing the hook. You can run it without Tex-posing it, however you want to do it. You can do it with a treble hook like y'all saw me do before. But either way, I'm running a 20-pound monofilament. I want that extra stretch because a lot of these fish are going to come up, they're going to grab it, and they're going to go down, and as they go down, they're going to get another bite of it. This just gives me some stretch. Gives them a little bit of play, especially with it being weightless, so it's a little bit harder for them to sling the hook. I run monofilament on certain things like my top water, but just so I can have that stretch. I ain't got to worry about that fish slinging that bait. But, you know, some type of medium moderate rod. This is the old one. This was my mother's, and still use it this day. It's an old school all-star rod. I love that rod. But that's a good bait also, you know, if you're in an area where the fish are already spawning, okay? You can catch those buck bass that are cruising, or you can use it to target those fish. Maybe you got a bluegill color or something like that. You can use that to target those fish that are on beds. It's just a fluke has endless options, or a weightless minnow, whatever you want to call it. But there's endless options. You can catch aggressive fish, you can catch lethargic fish. It's all about how you present that bait and confidence in the bait, you know, and whether or not you're going to catch something off of it. The last one I want to talk about is old swim jig. Okay, there's a couple swim jigs that I do like. This is a 6 cents one. I also like the Hack Attack or swim jig, but you know, I'm running this pretty much on a flipping rod. It's 7'6" heavy fast action rod, and I can use that bait to skip under docks. Maybe you got some docks going back up into a creek that these fish like to stage under. You can skip it, and I typically put the 6 cents divine on that. Once again, it just buttons up to it real well. But I can skip that bait, I can throw it next to cover, I can do all different kinds of stuff with it. I can swim it out in open water. You don't have to really worry about doing anything super crazy with it. It's simple, you know. If I'm throwing this bait and pitching it under, you know, docks or whatever, I can slow reel that bait, or you can pop your rod while you're reeling at the same time, and it's going to give that bait a little bit of flutter action, almost kind of like, it kind of makes it look like a, you know, a vibrating jig in a sense, but without the blade on the front of it. Now I typically don't do the whole popping and reeling thing until you know, I start seeing a good bit of grass and those fish start pulling up in that grass, where I can, you know, just kind of work that bait through the grass. But you know, either way guys, those are 5 baits that anybody can use to catch fish this time of year. It doesn't really matter where you're at in the country. Honestly, it doesn't really matter if you're in the pre-spawn, spawn, or post-spawn, because you're going to have fish doing all 3 until they're done. And then, you know, the majority of the fish are in post-spawn or back out to their summer hunt. So, you know, either way, if the video helps you at all, make sure to like, subscribe. I got you covered when it comes to anything bass fishing. Comment down below. I love hearing from you guys, and I'll see you next time.